Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another video here on Free Will Photos. Today, I'm just going to kind of go through a photo edit as I was sitting here kind of messing around inside of ON1 and said, you know what, I'll just go ahead and hit record. So here we are. So the photo that we have here today is something I took a few years back in 2022. And the first thing that I'm going to do is just come over here to the Style Advisor, click ON1. I'm going to let these load up real quick. And then I'm going to click this little gray box or these little 4 squares. That's going to bring up all of the presets or the styles that ON1 is suggesting to me in one big menu. And this is really helpful when you're trying to see like, hey, what do all of these look like without having to hover over and wait for that preview. I'm going to go with something that's a little bit more colorful and vibrant and contrasted. So this one seems to work out pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and select that. This says this will replace your current effects filter stack. You can always undo or pick a different style if you like. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit yes. I want to continue because I don't recall doing anything to this particular image, but if I did, I'm okay with it being removed. So I don't need that left pane anymore. Get a little bit more real estate, so I'll close that out. And let's go ahead and turn on Brilliance AI and see what happens there, because obviously I selected that preset, or yeah, we'll call it a preset, that style. There we go. I selected that style before I added Brilliance AI. So my photo still needs a little bit of basic tonal adjustments. And I'm just going to go ahead and try to bring down the exposure. Let me see if landscape kind of does something cool there, but I'm not going to worry about that. In fact, I think I'm just going to leave it on standard. Yeah, we'll leave it on standard. This seems to look pretty good. So this is what we came into the editing bay with, and this is what we have so far. Now, here is where you could stop if this is all you really wanted to do, and that is the beauty of working inside of ON1 Photo RAW. But I like to take my edits a little bit further and experiment because just like the message said earlier, if something happens and it doesn't work out, you could delete it. And so that's why I really enjoy working in programs like ON1. So let's see what filters that style actually added. It added in 3 filters. Now, I'm not going to go through the full breakdown of how you can analyze a preset for your own images. I did a video about that. Check the description box. I'll make sure that that's in there. But essentially, I like to turn these all off and then see what each one of them does to the photo individually. So that way, when I start to get my idea of what I want to do next to the image, I know what is already happening with each of these filters. All right. So the next filter that I'm probably going to add, let's go ahead and throw a LUT in here, but I only want the LUT to be over the green, areas in the image. I have to find a LUT that I want, and so let's find that first. And I'm going to use some LUTs that may or may not be available to you, but it's okay for showcasing purposes to give you the idea. And I actually like this look on the greens there. Let me turn this off. Turn it back on. Yeah, it just gives them a little bit more of a vintage green vibe. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the little layer mask here, and I am going to hover over my masking. I'm going to turn on color range. All right, now this is a really, really helpful tool to select a specific color. Right now it's got like this peach color in there. That's by default, but if I click this little eye picker, I can just select on my green here, and if I hit the letter O, we can see that that is selecting a whole lot. But if I start to pull down this color range, you can see I'm starting to pull back and only targeting the greens on my image. All right, now I'm going to hit the letter O, and we'll see how that works out. And that seems to be doing the trick. All right, I'm going to turn this off. and then turn it back on, and you can see how that's just changing those greens to a more vintage look in the overall image. Now, what I'm noticing is it is a little harsh at the transition points. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is hover over the mask, and then I'm going to just pull up my feather. Now, what I like to do is hit the letter O to see where those points are, and then I kind of fade them in looking at the mask overlay, just like so. And then if I hit the letter O, I can see what it looks like in real time as well. And I just like to pull those up until everything kind of fades, especially when you have areas like this where you have the selection going around places that aren't selected. And then we can see that's also happening down here in the little flower bud. So really good thing to do is to feather your selections, especially when you're using the AI stuff as well as some of the other. Now, this may be a little too much feather. So my recommendation is, if you want to be like more precise and just kind of blend it in enough with the image, I think that this will look good right here. So I always like to do before and afters. So I turn off the LUT and then I can turn it back on, and I like what's going on here. Now what I want to do is maybe add in an additional LUT, but this time I want to kind of maybe, you know, we'll try to make the background black and white. I think that could be, or less saturated, not black and white. So I'm going to hit add filter, and I'm going to use a LUT to do this as well. And I actually have a pack of LUTs. I think it's underneath the ON1 LUTs here, and I have a series of black and white ones right here. So I'm just going to look for one that gives me like a faded background look. I think the one up here looked the best. That one looks okay. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with number 3. And LUTs are just a really fast way of making this type of thing happen. All right, so there's a few ways that I can go about trying to apply this particular LUT into the image. The first way is clicking the layer mask and coming up here. I could try color range again. I'm not sure how well that's going to work. So let me just go ahead and click color range, grab my eyedropper tool. And then what I'm going to do is select the plant again. Now this is going to apply that look to the color range of the plant. I'm going to hit the letter O, pull down on my color range until I get just the plant selected. You can see I got a little bit of the background selected, but that's okay. Now what I'm going to do is invert my mask so that way the opposite is going to be selected in the image. So I'm going to go ahead and click the invert button here, and you can see that that makes the selection in the background. So now I have everything except for my flower or my plant selected. Let's see what that looks like. Hit the letter O to turn off my overlay, and that's actually given me a pretty good look relative to what I was going for, because I wanted that to be kind of like a faded background, doing a color pop effect, and we're gonna have some fun with this. All right, this is just a style that I'm making up on the fly, so bear with me. But we're gonna go ahead and pull up on our feather a little bit, because again, we want that to fade pretty well so it looks natural, or as natural as we can make it look for the style that we're going with, making it blend well. I think that this works really well. What I want to do is see if I can maybe hone in on just the background. So what I'm doing here is adjusting the levels of this mask, moving the middle grays closer to the blacks, because that's going to pull away some of those middle gray areas in the selection, so that way it doesn't get affected. Like if we look at this leaf down here at the very bottom, and I pull this up to the right, you'll see that it starts to get brighter. That means that more of that area is receiving that black and white treatment from the LUT. And as I pull this to the left, you can see that it gets darker, which means it's getting less of that treatment. And what I want to do is make it black, but I don't want to have to use my brush because I want to, kind of save time. So what I'm going to do is also pull down on the highlights here a little bit, and maybe that'll work. Always check your work. But you can see what that's really doing to this leaf, making it look very discolored, and I am not a fan of that. So let's just go ahead and pull that back up, and we'll go ahead and pull the levels back up as well. Once we have our levels kind of adjusted, this is back to how it was. What I can do is pull down on my LUT here, so it's only a little bit fade. And when I say pull down, I mean pull down on the opacity, so that way the LUT that I applied to the background is kind of just fading through. So let's go ahead and add in another filter. This time we're going to add in the sunshine filter. Now this is a filter that I really enjoy using after a glow filter. I've really been starting to add this in for my own style. And what I'm going to do is just push the warmth, because I want this image to be a little bit more warm. And you could add warmth in different ways, but I like using the sunshine filter because it allows me to add in something that mimics what the sun would be doing. And you could see that a lot of the light is coming in from the left side here. So I think that this just works really, really well for this particular image. Now, what I don't really care for is having it all over. We went through the work to make the background a little bit darker, and now the background's starting to get a little bit more of that light adjustment or sunshine adjustment. So let's go ahead and mask this in. But this one, I want to mask in using the masking bug. And we're going to go ahead and use a vignette, and I'm just going to click right here. That's going to apply the adjustment on the outside. Well, I want that to actually be inside, so I just went ahead and switched my shape over to edges. I also could have clicked invert, but I just decided to click the edges. And then what I'm going to do is put this right over the center point, or I guess the thing that is most interesting in this image. And then I'm just going to kind of stretch this out in that direction and fade this. So let's go ahead and turn this off and turn it on. And you can see that the light is really kind of focusing in on this area right here. I could probably make it a little bit more narrow as well. I think that making it more narrow is probably the most appropriate. Let's go ahead and turn this off and turning it back on. And now it's kind of just like this beam of light that's coming straight down here. Now, to really accentuate this, I'm going to go ahead and copy this mask. So come over to my mask. Yep, it copied. I'm going to add one more filter, and this is going to be the tone enhancer. And I am going to paste this mask. So let's go ahead and paste the mask that we just created. And I want to invert this. Now what I want to do is pull down on the exposure. And what that does, you can see, is it's starting to make everything else in the image a little bit darker. All right. Now what I think I want to do, so let's get the masking bug. The cool thing about copying mask and ON1 is you can still edit them later, and I'm going to correct this masking bug because I don't want to make the tip of this leaf dark. So what I'm going to do is just pull this out so that darkening effect extends a little bit further away from the center point of the image that we were adding that sunshine filter. So, we're accentuating it at a different point is essentially what's happening here. So I'm going to pull down on the exposure and maybe bump the contrast. Nah, we'll pull the contrast just a little bit there. Yeah. And then maybe pull the details down. And this is one of those things, trial and error. If I pull the details up, it's going to look really, really odd, I think. So I'll pull the details down just a little bit and still want to check everything. So turn this off and turn it back on. And I think that is bringing a little bit more interest into the overall image, maybe a little too strong. So we'll pull the opacity down just a touch here. And I think that will probably do well. Let's turn this off and turn it back on. And there it is. All right. So let's try one more thing, and that is adding in a texture. Now, textures are really, really cool, and they add just another dynamic to the image. And ON1 has some pretty good built-in categories. One of my favorite categories is actually this ON1 vintage textures. Now, I think this came from a preset pack that I got from ON1. And if I'm not mistaken, if you are a Plus member, which if you're not a Plus member, I highly recommend you become a Plus member. If you want to save a little bit of money, use my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. It'll let you save some money. It is an affiliate link. That's a shameless plug, but it's for a program that I do use because there are a lot of extras that come with ON1 Plus that you may not get otherwise, or you won't get otherwise. So if this is something that you're like on the fence about, I do recommend that you at least try it for a month. See if you like it. Download some of the extras, play with them, install them, do that, and see what happens. But the reason I enjoy these is because the vintage textures really bring out and they accentuate the overall photo in many cases. So I don't have necessarily a favorite vintage texture. I just kind of experiment with them and see what happens. So I guess it was showing me a different overlay. I thought that was 19, but I was not on 19. Okay, I like number 10, so we'll go with that. And what I think I want to do here is probably make it a little less subtle. And I think I want to pull the texture overlay out of the darkest areas. So the way that you do that is if you come over to blending, I think is where it's at. Yep. If you come over to blending, while you have the, you want to click the layer mask, make sure that you are on the properties of the texture tool, and then you'll come over to blending. And down here where it says protect, you can pull your adjustments away from certain areas. So if I don't want this to be in the shadows, I can just pull up on the shadows here, and I'm going to do it really extreme, and you can see how that pulls it away from the darkest areas of the image. Now, I don't want to pull it away that much because I do want this to have a little bit of that texture grittiness in those darker areas, but I do want to pull it away a little bit. And you could also do the same thing with the highlights. So the brightest areas, they just won't get this treatment. And you can really see it happening down here in the bud. If I pull this all the way up, there's nothing. If I pull it down, you can see that it gets a little bit darker. Now, what's counteracting this is the opacity of the overall overlay. So if I were to pull that up, you could see it gets a little bit stronger. But I wanted this to be pulled down because I kind of wanted to fade in to the overall image. So I think that looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and leave it like so. So let's take a look at the complete before. This is what came into ON1 Photo RAW, and with a short little bit of time, I was able to get to this overall outcome. And that's just the power of using ON1 Photo RAW. You can really do some artistic things, and this wasn't a very interesting image to begin with, which is why I selected it, because I said, let me see what I can do. Now, what I am noticing now are these little white blemishes, I guess we'll call them. I don't know. We're going to go ahead and fix that. So if I click on textures and I scroll down to the transform, I have a few different options. So I can flip this horizontal or vertically, and that puts the textures down here. So, you know, if that is interacting with your image the way that you don't want it to, causing some weird looks, then that's one way of trying to fix it. I could also flip it horizontally, and now those issues are over here, but I still have them at the top. So let's go ahead and flip this back over this direction, and then you can rotate it, right? You can rotate it by 90 degrees. So I could rotate it like so. No, that isn't really doing, well, I guess it did do a little bit. It got rid of them over here. But if none of those work, what you can do is just pull up on the scale. And what that's going to do is expand the size, and you could just move those little blemishes off of your overall canvas. Now, it does change the perspective of the canvas itself or the overlay, and that may not be as desirable. So just food for thought. What I think I'm going to do is pull this down just a little bit. Imperfections are okay, I think, when you're starting to use like textures and vintage textures. So I am going to allow it. However, let me show you how you could fix it. If they're in areas where it's easy to kind of clone stamp and correct things, all right? So one of those places would be this piece right here. Now, I can't just go up to the clone stamp and start doing that right now. So what I need to do is I need to duplicate the layer. So we're going to let ON1 do that. And then I need to right click, and I need to make a new stamped layer. Now, if you're not familiar with this technique, the stamped layers really just allow you to take multiple layers and make them into one. And so now this is one big image. Instead of one image with a bunch of effects on it, like these ones are, these ones have all of our effects, but this one does not have any effects. All right. So what I'm going to do is click over on our retouching tools. And the first tool that I'll try to use and see if it works is the actual, I always get these tool names confused, the healing brush. So this is the healing brush. I'm just going to go ahead and paint over this area like so. And it's gone. Now that worked because that was a darker area in the image, so it made it a little bit easier for me to get rid of it. Had that been like over the leaf here, like this blemish, I probably would not have tried to do it that way. So hopefully that was insightful of when to choose certain tools inside of ON1 and just giving you an idea of what you can do. The best way to learn this software is to grab a photo that you may not even be interested in editing and just play with the filters, see what happens. You don't have to share it with anyone. I had no intention of really clicking record today until I said, you know what? This is exactly what I'm talking about when I want people to explore inside of ON1 Photo RAW and not have any idea of what's going to come out or any expectation. So release the pressure from yourself of having to make a perfect image every single time, and just enjoy working inside of the software. And when you design or develop a look that you really, really like, save it as a preset so you can add it to another image later on down the line. The way that you save presets is, we'll come over to one that actually has some filters on it. And you can click on effects, or you can come over to develop, and there's going to be this little box with a arrow pointing down. If you click that, you'll get your preset dialog, and then you can just make sure that all of the items that you want to save in your preset are checked. So I have effects, which is going to be everything that's in my effects section. I'm not applying any other masks. We did work with some more intricate masks, but I don't recommend applying the masks unless it's really baked into the design and it's going to translate well to multiple images. The develop module, you can absolutely leave all of those the same, because you can tweak that however you need to. And most of what I did with the develop module happened with Brilliance AI, which is going to analyze each image anyhow. But once that's done, give it a name, select the location that you want to save it in, and then hit save. Now, I do have a video showing how to save presets. I'll leave that in the description box as well if that's something you're interested in. So there you have it. That's the exploration. If you found value in this video, smash the like button. If you got questions about using ON1 Photo RAW, throw them in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer them. And then, of course, if you want to save some money when you shop at ON1, their store, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. It's going to save you some money at checkout. I do make a small commission, and I thank everyone who uses that coupon code. Until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.